This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Chasing perfection feels like you're running a race that's never ending. And for me, it also felt like my life was being engulfed by this dark cloud. And no matter how hard I ran, it still felt like this goal was extremely unreachable. Perfection, that is, not life itself, because on the outside, I always appeared to have everything together. But on the inside, I was a scattered mess, hoping others didn't notice how imperfect I really was. And that worry alone was enough to almost ruin my life. So before perfection ruins your life, I'd like to share the 5 steps I took to avoid this illusion of perfection. Step number 1, watched my self-talk. Retraining old habits is not an easy thing to do, and changing the way you talk to and about yourself is probably the toughest habit of all to adjust. When the voice in your head says things like, everything is riding on this, or don't mess up, or this has to be perfect, then it becomes really hard to stop yourself from chasing perfection. For me, this voice in my head often spoke louder than any sound that came from my mouth. And without even realizing it, I was feeding my perfectionist behavior over and over again to the point where it began to ruin my life. My attitude was poor. I started giving up before trying because, again, that voice in my head that was feeding this leech-like behavior was telling me that if I don't do this perfectly, then I'm a failure. And I'm not gonna lie, I hated that feeling. So I started paying attention to my self-talk and how it supports my perfectionist behavior. And whenever I caught myself speaking this way, whether it was out loud or hidden within my thoughts, I made a conscious choice to replace it with something else. I'm not perfect at it, no pun intended, but being aware of this habit has made it 100 times easier to distance myself from perfection. Step number 2, I asked myself why. Understanding why I put such an unreachable standard on everything I did or wanted to do was something I never thought about until I acknowledged that my perfectionist behavior was a serious issue. Like other habits we take part in throughout our life, I knew perfection was serving some part of me. Comes to find out, it was my fears. In many ways, I was afraid of not being good enough because everything had to be perfect. I was afraid I'd make a mistake or say something that would expose my insecurities. But I wouldn't have known that if I didn't take the time to identify why perfection felt like such an ingrained habit. Step number 3, I exposed myself. In other words, I faced my fears. Sounds cliche, I know, but it's a very necessary step. For me, this meant exposing myself to the things that made me feel uncomfortable, the reasons why I chose to chase perfection to begin with. And although this was probably the most uncomfortable I felt in any situation, this was the exact push I needed to break my bond with perfection. Step number 4, I practice patience. All good things take time to grow. And what I've learned is that if we mismanage our emotions and cling to perfectionism, then all we're doing is setting ourselves up for a life filled with frustration and disappointment. See, patience has this unique ability to help us produce, grow, and achieve far more than we could if we kept chasing perfection. Practicing patience is being consciously aware of our humanity and remembering that none of us are perfect. Patience means embracing ourselves with self-acceptance and love and choosing to focus on progress rather than perfection. We'll do the opposite. We greatly limit our potential, which causes us to make very little progress in life, if any at all. Step number 5, I stopped being my worst critic. Years ago, I had to learn that it's okay to be human, which means we're allowed to make mistakes. A big problem with perfection that I grew very familiar with is how easy it is to become overly critical of your faults. And whew, was I critical. I mean, I used to beat myself up so much it felt like a hobby, but that's what this illusion does to you, and it would ruin your life if you let it. So instead of beating myself up, I gave myself love and compassion in times of defeat. Here's a reminder that helped me. Failure is not lack of perfection. It's an opportunity to learn. And right now, in this chapter of my life, I'm taking every opportunity I can to not only learn, but share what I'm learning. And platforms like YouTube and Squarespace, today's video sponsor, have made that really easy for me. And if you're not familiar with Squarespace, they are the place to build a beautiful online presence in the form of a website. And there are a few features that I'm particularly a fan of. The first being email campaigns. If you don't know, I have a newsletter called the Simple Truth Newsletter. And fun fact, there are more of you subscribed to my newsletter than how many people I went to college with, and that's awesome. I also really enjoy their blogging features, which makes it really easy for me to write and share more valuable content with you. If you want to check it out, I'll leave a link to it down below. But also, if you've been interested in starting your own website or blog, then I can't recommend Squarespace more. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and then when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Ronald L. Banks and save 10% on your first purchase of a website or domain. I hope you found value in this conversation, and if you enjoyed this more vulnerable side of me, comment below and let me know. I'd love to continue this conversation with you. Keep growing, keep learning, and always stay true to you. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.